Welcome to Voices from the Field podcast presented by Extra Inning Softball, where the stories are real, the conversations are honest, and the game goes way beyond the field. We're bringing you insight, inspiration, and all things softball from the people shaping the sport.
Hello, Extra Inning Softball family, and welcome back to Voices from the Field podcast. I am super excited for today because it's really not about anything other than two women who played the game, coached the game, sitting down and kind of reflectively looking back on all the things going on. We have some great discussions. The very first part we're going to talk about are all things for the class of 2026, the watch list, the whys, and what's next. And then we're going to transition into the class of 2027 and what's changing and why it's changing, or at least our perspective of why it is. We also sent out to several people across the regions within Extra Inning Softball and said, hey, send us some questions. What do you want us to talk about? Banter back and forth. So sit back, stay tuned for the next 30, 40 minutes with Laina Holgram and myself, just talking about all things softball, obviously something we've done our whole life and kind of obsessed with, or at least I can say. You're young, so you have an ability to have a different life, but I'm all things softball. So welcome, Laina. I'm super excited to get started with you.
I know, I'm excited. And the 2026 class is definitely a class to be excited about. We've seen them forever. We've watched them forever. We've gotten to rank them. And now they're committed for the most part, or they're still looking for homes, and it's time to celebrate that. And they, for the most part, seem like they all have their fit in their home. It's really exciting. They've poured in a ton of hard work, a lot of energy, the families, the coaches, everyone, not just the players. And it's time to celebrate them. We're really excited to do so.
Yeah, it's exciting. And I think what was so exciting is the number of athletes that are appearing on these watch lists. Like, we're talking thousands of girls. And I think that's so cool. And to be honest, going through the lists and seeing them all, I'm so excited. Here, I think I started playing softball with Jesus. So I've been doing this a long time. And to discover new schools that I've never even really heard of. But I think the thing that I'd love to talk about is how we're doing it. The watch list is a watch list by divisions. And I think that is so cool and so important because, there is great softball being played at NAIA, D2, D3. Heck, you'll see sometimes where those schools will cross over and play in the fall and they'll beat some of the Power Fours. So not like a downgrade of softball. It's truly phenomenal softball coached by some incredible coaches out there. So it's so cool to me that Extra Inning Softball said, you know what? These young women have been ranked for years as individuals. And now we want to celebrate, like you said, and, empower, inspire, and support these young women and kind of get them prepared for college. Because in college, there's not a ranking. Here's 1, 2, 3, or 4. It's, hey, there's this watch list and let's see how the season plays out. And that's what we're doing in Extra Inning with the class of 2026, in the Power Four, the mid majors, the D2, D3, JUCO, the NAIA, and the NCCAA. I'm waiting for more divisions to pop up that I'm not even knowing about. But we're also being able to highlight some of those programs because it's kind of celebrating the hard work of those coaches and the teams that have already been there to get some of these incredible athletes to be there. And I think what's so cool is the list is huge. Like, it is huge right now. And as these commitments keep popping, we keep adding them to that watch list so that they're there. Kind of explain to us the process of what it's going to do. Okay, so here's these ginormous watch lists. What does it mean?
Yeah. So basically, the rankings committee went out, did a ton of research, and they were able to pull together anyone that they could find in the 2026 class that was committed to a college in any of those divisions. So again, like Carie talked about earlier, if your name is not on that list, please reach out to us. Please email us. We'll get you on that list, okay? We want to celebrate everyone. You touched on it earlier, but we at Extra Inning Softball think it's so cool that we understand that people are choosing these schools over some big ticket name schools for reasons, and we want to lift that up and celebrate that. I think historically in the past, people might have been like, oh, you're settling for that school. No, there's no settling here, right? They are choosing these schools for location or for atmosphere or academic reasons. And they know that they're going to thrive there. They know that that team could possibly be up heavily on some of the D1 or whatever division. And they're doing that with pride. And so that's why it was really important to kind of lift up those voices. And so what we're doing, right, is we're putting together these watch lists and we're trying to find as many, many, many athletes as we can, okay? Because every voice deserves to be heard. Every name deserves to be recognized. From there, though, you touched on it, just kind of like the college landscape. They have these preseason watch lists. And then the season develops, everyone plays their heart out, people excel, people maybe go under the radar, and then towards the end of the year, it gets narrowed down. And then there's a player of the year, right? Shout out Brie Ellis. So we need to make sure that we are getting everyone we possibly can on that list. And then we're going to see how it plays out. We're going to narrow it down to a top 100, right?
Yeah.
And then a top 50. And then over the course of time, we're going to get to a player of the year. And it's going to be so fun to see now that you guys are all committed, right? Your journey isn't over. The hard work doesn't stop, right? It should increase. You guys should be trying to get to that point that college is at. And so it's just kind of a fun way to keep celebrating you guys and keep encouraging the hard work, right? Because I feel like everything is on social media nowadays. You get that picture, you're in the uniform, you're in the cool background, and then it kind of goes quiet for a year. And then signing day comes and there's the balloons, the backdrop, all of it. And then it goes quiet for a year, right? It's not time to just put it away and rest, right? That's the time where your hard work increases, but then weirdly the noise decreases. And we want to pump up the noise for you guys to keep you encouraged because this is the hard grind, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what's so cool is there's so many on each list that it will, after the first of the year, if I'm correct, so in 2026,
Yeah.
which is their class,
Yeah.
it'll be narrowed down to the top 100. So there'll be some consideration taken on what they've done in the past year, as well as anything that they've accomplished in the fall.
Mhm.
Narrowed down to that top 100. I think sometime in April,
Mhm.
it goes down to the top 50.
Yeah.
And then I think in July, it goes to the final 25.
Yeah.
And then right off before they ship off to college, it goes down to just one. And so I think what's really cool is, no one would have seen Brie Ellis as player of the year from Arkansas.
Right.
And look what she was able to do during that year. Obviously there's going to be some pitfalls. Some kids will get injured here or there.
Mhm.
So it might change the list, but that's the nature of the college game. And that's the beauty of it. So super, super excited about that. Really want to talk about why it's important for these young women to have these individual rankings. Yes, it helps them in recruiting and all that good stuff, but I want to talk about the young women still in the class of 2026 are uncommitted,
Oh, yeah.
that are still committing. Like, we are recognizing these uncommitted 26s. Some of them are kids that decommitted from one school and are looking for a new place, but it's really fun to kind of highlight some of these 26s, because I think most of the people are like, well, if you're not a 27, it's over. And it's not. These
It's not.
26 kids still popping and still going to some great colleges, even
Yeah.
to some power fours. So
Yeah.
I think that's super excited, very challenging for the extra innings softball ranking committee, because I can't even fathom how to figure that out.
Yeah.
And like everything with rankings and even the final list, there's always going to be, I mean, if you have to narrow down 800 kids down to 100, like, there's no rhyme or reason. But it brings me back to the NC2A.
Yeah.
There's 10 to 15 kids that should have been an All-American, but you got to make decisions. And so I don't envy the ranking committee, but I think the last 5 years will also do it. And I think it's kind of cool, because the one thing that I think I can see the ranking committee taking into perspective for these lists that they don't do in the ranking of individual players is, what have they done in the past?
Mhm.
Like letting that reputation of what that kid did over the
Yeah.
last 2 or 3 years kind of help maybe inch them up into that list, whether they were injured or whether they I don't know, had an off fall season or something like
Totally.
that. Doesn't mean
Yeah.
they'll be knocked off. So I think that's really excited. I think that's what extra inning softball whole mission is
Yeah.
really empowering, inspiring, and supporting, and we get to do so many right there. So I want to transition into the deep fire pit of the class of 2027. I think this is going to be fun conversation for us. Obviously, not that I'm opinionated at all by any chance. I have a lot of my own opinions with it, but I want it to be real talk, just informative and really kind of slightly controversial between the two of us. Like, if you take a point that I actually agree with, I might take the opposite side. kind of here, but I think the biggest thing I want to start with and get your take on is, in my opinion, the class of 2027 is crazy. And it's crazy in the pace in which it's going. Like, you see this recruiting board, and that's because I've done it. You have all these names all over. And as people commit, names start to come off. I don't know if I've ever seen them come off like they've come off this fall. Like, it used to be, well, 10 of the most elite athletes would commit on the first weekend. Well, those were the athletes that knew where they were going before they took their trip anyways, to be honest with you. But let's talk about it. I think with a little research, after the first couple days of coaches being able to talk, not the first weekend of visits, not the second weekend, we had over 30 elite athletes. So we're not talking like a trickle effect. We're talking like freight train, get out of my way, it's coming. Talk to me about your feelings on that. Talk to me about where you see that changing. Is this just a trend? Is this going to be 6-7 or whatever they're all doing out there? Or is this going to be something that really truly changes?
Yeah.
And then we can discuss where we see it going.
Well, one thing I want to note too.
So
one thing I want to note too is, like, I think in the past it's been so publicized that these athletes are committing to big time programs out of the gate. They're committing to all of the divisions out of the gate, right? Like, when these watch lists were getting put together, Extra Innings was seeing not only commitments for these divisions with the 2026s, they were seeing it almost immediately for the 27s too, which, again, like my earlier point, it's so cool that people are just leaning into what fits them. Okay. So that it's not just the big ticket ones that you see on social media and they got the crown and the throne and all this stuff. People are committing quickly at rapid rates to places that they think fit them and that their heart belongs to. Okay. I don't think it's a trend though. I really don't. I think it's crazy to say that, but I mean, this has really been happening ever since the rule change of the September 1, right? And I remember being a college coach when that rule was put in place. And I remember the absolute sheer fear that those first few classes in high school felt. Okay. Because they felt like they were so late, because the trend before then was committing on the rare occasion in 8th grade, freshman year, sophomore year. So when this first class that went through the ringer had to wait all the way until September 1 of their junior year, they had this wild built up anxiety. And so they were ready. Okay. And when that first year rolled out and there were commitments that quickly, I think it just set the tone, right? I think the trend is going to get crazier and crazier and crazier. And there might be a few handful of student athletes that like to wait and feel their process out. But I don't think the early commitments are ever going to go away unless there are rule changes from the higher ups that say, this is your communication period, this is your visitation period, and now this is your offer and acceptance period. I really don't think it's going to change. Do you?
no, I don't. And here's the thing that I love about what you're saying. Like, we've opened up Pandora's box.
Oh, God, yeah.
And doing Quest has always said it best. The dog is not wagging the tail is wagging the dog. And I think the thing about it is that I don't like is I think originally when you had kids committing 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th grade, and that was happening a lot more than what people realize.
Yeah.
Obviously offers were changed. I mean, all those kind of stuff. And I think there was some sort of sanity of like, hey, let's push it back and make it later. So I think the easy thought process was, and it's like most rules in the NC2A is let's fix the immediate, but they don't really see the long term because rules only regulate the honest people. They don't regulate the people that are gonna find a way to get around it. I call those lawyers. I probably shouldn't say that, but I call those lawyers. And so I think what they thought, okay, September 1, that's a good thing because it lets them have their freshman and sophomore year of like experiencing it and going to camps and not feeling like they're missing out. But I think what has happened the way it currently sits, just like what you said, is the recruiting process is going to become faster and faster.
Yep.
There's a lot of pressure points with this. And I'm telling you, because I've got a daughter that's young and in, and I'm hearing all kinds of things. Obviously, there's the recruit stories, the college coach story, the parent story, and somewhere in the middle of all three of those is the absolute truth because communication with human beings
Totally.
is difficult. But what I'm seeing is kids setting up 2 to 3 visits of the schools that they really say they're interested in, that they've been exploring for the last first 2 years, and can't visits being canceled immediately, and verbal offers being threatened to be pulled or being pulled saying, "Look, we gotta make a decision. You're here if you don't know now, you're not gonna know."
Mhm.
Well, how do these young athletes know if they don't explore all those options? And it might work in the short run. Some of these young females might end up committing to that school that puts pressure on them or anything like that early. But I foresee it ending up being something that might bite them in the long run,
Mhm.
and you end up being a portal you because you've got kids making decisions at 16 and 17 years old. I do not believe that the recruiting process needs to be pressure
No.
in a timing sense for these young women.
No.
That really bothers me because what I think, um, the financial strain and the scholarship negotiation, that's the pressure for the parents.
Mhm.
That's the bottom line.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be like I look at every one of my parents and I'm like, look, where your kid goes to school doesn't have to cost you a dime because it's not your responsibility to pay for it. There is a thing called student loans. And if they want to go to a school that offers 75% and take a loan out, then be okay with that.
Yeah.
Like, don't say, nope, got to go where the money is because we don't want
Yeah.
any debt. You're going to end up leaving anyways. But it's the fear of missing out mindset that I feel like is creeping back in for families.
Yes.
And I don't know if it's because 'cause I'm old, I don't know if it's because 'cause I've coached or played or been on the recruiting end
Yeah.
of it with a daughter. I wanna take these parents and shake them and say,
100%.
"Don't give up your right to advocate for your child, to guide your child." And honestly, if any program out there is saying, look, you need to make a decision, and if you don't by such and such date, and look, I'm not saying these college coaches that are bringing these athletes in on that first weekend and say, look, you're our number one, we want you, la di da di da, all that kind of stuff. That we're not. I'm going to bring in my next recruit. Of course, I'm going to bring in my next recruit,
Yeah.
and that communication to go. And it's fair game and it's
Yeah.
good business for a college coach to
Yeah.
say, look, I'm going to keep this truly for you, just you for the next 4 weeks. 'Cause I know you have a couple trips coming and all that kind of stuff, but I'm going to be bringing in my others and saying like, look, and so I wish that was the way it went more often.
Yeah.
I don't know if I should even say this, but I feel like if some of these college coaches, and I can't even say this because I'm not in it anymore and it's not paying my mortgage. So they've got a lot more pressure on them now than they've ever had. So
Ever.
the pressure that the athletes are feeling,
Yeah.
the coaches are feeling on the other side. So I get it. I
Yeah.
truly do. Um, but I wish I could literally say, like, think about it if it was your daughter.
Yeah.
And I mean, I just did it with my daughter, and I sat her down, and I don't know if this was the right way of doing it, but it's the way I did it. I'm like, look, as you take these calls on September 1, do not commit to a trip, because if you do, I'm demanding you take it. Because there's
Right.
something about you committing to that trip. And I guess I kind of equated it to her. I'm like, think about, you wouldn't just go on any date with any guy that called you, would you? She's like, no. And I'm like, then treat it the same way. Like
Yes.
this
Yeah.
is the courting period of getting to know. Ask the really hard questions. You're in the driver's seat.
Yeah.
Like ask, and don't be afraid to ask any questions. And if they don't like it, then that's God's way of telling you, like, this is not a door for you to walk through. So I said, don't commit to any trip that you won't do. So she sat down and really kind of went through all of the schools that she was looking at,
Yeah.
looked at their football schedules when she thought they would have weekends and
Mhm.
said, hey, I have this weekend available. And she took all 4 or 5 schools that she was looking at and tried to combine it to where she could map out how she could get to all the
I
schools that
love
she
that.
wanted to see. And I think when I look back at that, she had 2 or 3 other schools that she had said, I really want to take a trip, but I'm not sure when or how. So I'm going to have to get back to you. And those were those schools that, like, they weren't her backup plans, but it was like ones she really wanted to go and see, and ones that she loved the coaches, loved the campus, but maybe they weren't in the conference that she wanted to be
Yeah.
in or something like that. So she wanted to go and see the schools that she thought, like, one of these are going to be my home.
Yeah.
And it weren't. So she pushed those off a little bit. But I think that really helped, and I think one of her top ones in there, like, she had one weekend that she could go to them and get to all the other ones. And she's like, this is the only weekend I can come. And I love your school and I would love to play for you. And it wasn't a weekend that worked out for them. And then it was okay. then it's
Yeah.
just not meant to be. Like, it's just not meant to
100%.
be.
You have
You know, I think they have to take that
Yeah.
in control because I think we all have to remember these are 16 and 17-year-old young females.
Mhm.
They're not adults. They can't vote, they can't drink, they can't do anything, and we're telling them choose where you're gonna be to go do all that.
Yeah.
Like, once you can
And
vote and drink, you gotta
sure.
decide where you're at 16 and 17,
Yeah.
you know? And I think making a 4-year decision,
Mhm.
they're probably laughing hearing me saying that, but making a 4-year decision in 4 weeks, and yet some of these were 4 days. So I
Less
think about,
or less.
like,
It was the day that they were allowed to, which is
yep,
nuts. And I love that she was prepared enough to do that. I love that she was reminded that it's her journey. And I know that these athletes are hearing that message. It's your journey. Take your time. You're in the driver's seat. Take your time. I'm pretty new out of the game, and I've worked for staffs that put timelines on and don't put timelines on. And I have to say, these coaches also have to take accountability for how they're treating these young women. They do.
yes,
I mean, there is a business to it, and I completely understand that, but there is a right way to do it, right? There's a way to
mhm,
put a timeline on a kid, but explain it to them in a way that's like, hey, if this is your home, wonderful. If you don't have that gut feeling that this is your home and where you're fit, awesome. Just let us know if it's not, right? Or, hey, you're our number one pick. That's why we have you here right away. But just know for business, we have to bring in our number two if you're not ready to make a decision. Your offer is still valid, right? But just know if we bring someone else in and they're ready to commit and you are on the fence or you're backing out, we're going to take that commitment, we're
yes.
gonna pull your offer, like, not in a heartless way, not in a crazy way, but, like,
No, that's a business decision at that
you
point in
have
time.
to explain it to them because they are 16 and 17-year-old kids. Like, yes, we're calling them young women. Yes, they're mature, they're ready for it, but these are heartbreaking, heart-wrenching decisions that
Mhm,
some and even the most ready ones still aren't ready to hear those tough words, so you have to navigate them through that. And so the college
absolutely.
coaches really, really need to take accountability for how they're treating these young women despite being in a business that's so pressure packed right now. We get
Mhm,
it. We all get it. We've been there before. It's paid our mortgages before. They're still young girls, right? They're still human at the end of the day. And it's just crazy to hear kind of some of the stories that these girls are going through that they're not treated as such. They're treated as like just honestly a business deal. They could be names on a piece of paper trading in the business and, "Oh, you say no? We're wiping our hands clean of you. Sorry for coming to camp the last 5 years and getting to know you. We're never talking to you again."
yep, I agree.
That's not
I agree, and
me.
I don't know. I think for me, I would like to talk, and I'm gonna call it the extra innings softball perspective
Yeah.
about development and patience and perspective. And I almost have more sympathy more sympathy for the boys or the young men that are
Yeah.
doing it because the true elite athletes we're talking about, they're making multi-million dollar decisions in
Yes.
their life. They're looking at choosing things and doing things because they're gonna be drafted and they might only be at that school for a year.
Yeah.
That's a different thing. And you know what? When we get to that point for these young women, maybe I'll change my tune and say, "Suck it up, buttercup. I don't care about the pressure because you'll
Yeah.
be able to make life-changing or generational changing money for your
Oh,
family."
yeah.
And Asia Kennedy, God bless you, you're there. But 1 or 2 into it. And, I'm not even golfing at the people that are making 20,000 extra dollars a year with their NILs or 50 or 75. And, there's so many numbers thrown out and around there. Outside of the Texas Tech ball game, I would really like to see things on the paper because if some of these people are giving 100,000 or $200,000 to 16-year-old softball players who haven't even finished it, they're not gonna be able to do it forever. It's not sustainable. It's just not sustainable,
No.
So, I'd like to talk about the extra inning perspective, and I guess I'm gonna call it development, patience, and perspective.
Yes.
Um, I think it's development over speed. And I want to encourage, and I think you've already said it, is that your timeline is your timeline. It's
Mhm.
not anybody else's. And the important part of it is the fit, which means the school, the coach, the culture. It's not the conference. It's not the
Yes.
clout.
Yeah.
Not have they beat the World Series. It's not, what was their record or how many of their players were all Americans. It's
Yeah.
truly fit. And the school, the coach, and the culture are the number one things that these young women should be putting in there. And when I say the school, I'm saying the school from, I wish there was more pressure put on these young women of saying, hey, what do you think you want to do when you grow up?
Exactly.
Like those would be better things because those are going to be decisions that are going to be with them for the rest of their life. Like my daughter chose Arkansas. If all of a sudden her sophomore year she decides she wants to be a marine biologist, Lake Beaver ain't going to do it. Like we're going to have to transfer
Yeah.
schools. Like,
Yeah.
so I wish there was more pressure put on of what do you think you want to do
Mhm.
when you grow up? And if you have no idea, which is like 90% of them, I mean, I think 10% that I ever recruited came in, knew exactly what they were going to do. And that's what they're doing in their career right now. So, those 90%, they've got to think broader. They've got to be able to say, here's 4 or 5 things that I think I want to do. Does this school
Yeah.
that I think I want to go to have all those opportunities for me? And if they
Yeah.
don't, am I going to be willing to say, portal time got to change? So I think that's the huge part of it. And like literally, I think the first weekend of 2027, over 50 of the elite athletes had already committed to where they're going, canceling trips, maybe even backing out of other commitments. I don't know. I just think we've traded patience for panic.
It's fast.
And I think that's the best way to say it.
Yeah.
And that panic is truly a trickle down effect. So the true elites said, oh my God, if I don't choose Texas, if I don't choose Tennessee, if I don't choose Oklahoma, like, I'm not going to do it. And look, there are plenty of young women that are out there that this message isn't even for their families. They've gone to the same camps for 10 years. They knew they were going to play there. They didn't care who the coach was. Their great, great, great grandfather was born on the campus. They're going there. Like they're going to that school.
Yeah.
That's not even a recruiting process. That's
Mhm.
just a, hey, it's time, say yes, let's go.
Yeah.
So I do, and there is the other side. If like your kid goes to 2 or 3 schools and they know right away, maybe there's college coaches out there that say, hey, tell me, I don't want to waste my time or money.
Yeah.
But I think that's what the parents have to get involved is you've got to know your child.
Yes.
Like if there's a school that your kid has been saying, hey, they're number 1 or 2 on my list, and they're the last trip and the other school is putting pressure on them. As a parent, I'm going to say, tell them you're taking the trip and either they're going to wait or if they don't and it doesn't work, you weren't meant to go there because I think that's a God thing.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I guess I could get on my soapbox and say, look, it's about faith and it's about knowing that in my heart, God already knows where you're supposed to go.
Yeah.
But are you choosing the right one God's done? Or are you going to open a door he didn't open that he'll eventually shut and you have to end up in the portal and go to
Yeah.
a new one?
It's
I
40
don't know.
years for the next 40 years of your life with whatever career you choose or life path that you take. Or, I mean, we used to say back in the day, again, the early recruiting, like, God forbid anything happened to you physically. Like, God forbid you have this career ending injury. The age old question that everyone used to prep us with was, is this a place that you are still going to stay at, that you're still going to get taken care of, that you can still be involved if you choose to be involved with the program? Like, is this place going to take care of you? And are you going to be happy here if softball is taken away?
Yep. Yep.
I don't know if that's being asked anymore. And it's a
No, I
twofold pressure.
do it.
Like, it's the panic that you were talking about, right? The panic is not only felt, but then applied from the players and the coaches. And that's why it feels like such a wave, right? It feels like such a rush when the floodgates open on September 1. That's why it feels like a tidal wave rush, because these coaches are all competing for the top teams or top kids, or even take out the top kids, right? Talk regionally. There are
Yes.
mid-major teams that compete in the same regional pool for the top talent in that region, right? Ohio always comes to mind when I think about this stuff. Ohio has such great programs and they all compete for the same kids, and that's a rat race too, right? So it's a pressure from the coaches to get the top kids in that program, because if they don't get it, their conference competitor is going to get that kid, right? And then it's also felt on the player side of it, and it's just, we got to really trust in God's guidance and knowing if your dream school, right? If they're the ones that are like, you have to be at campus at this date on this time, or else we're not offering you. And then once we give you an offer, you have 24 hours to decide. Maybe that's God's hand guiding you
Yeah,
in
absolutely.
making that decision. And I think that it's just a reminder, like, it is your journey. You are young, but you are powerful, right? You don't need to be intimidated by anyone in this decision. And I know that's hard because sometimes the intimidation comes from parents, right? And that is difficult because they're your caretakers, they're your caregivers. Like, they have walked through every step of life from you. So if you get that pressure, it's really difficult, but really try to center yourself. Where are you happy, right? Where socially could you have a fun college experience? Like, if you're into nature, right? Are you going to go to a really urban city school? Or are you going to go somewhere that you can go on hikes and go to the lake or go to the beach or whatever, or vice versa? If you hate nature, why are we going to one of the most beautiful nature campuses on earth, right? Like, why are we not in a campus downtown in the city? So it's your journey. You are powerful. You have a voice and you have a gut feeling, right? Whether you think that's God's voice, whether you trust your gut, whatever you wanna think of it, trust it and take back
Yeah,
control, 'cause you're powerful.
absolutely. So I want to switch for the last 5-10 minutes that we're talking and kind of then come full circle and wrap everything back up. But we put out to a lot of different regions and asked for questions about like what's going on with the class of 2027, everything that we're talking about. That's why we made this such an early episode in season 4 for it. But coming from region 2, someone said, do you think that the current pace improves or worsens the experience for the athlete, keeping in mind that they're 16 to 7 years old in terms of making decisions, development, and mental health? I think we've kind of answered that.
Yeah,
But I think the mental health part of it, and I'm gonna be honest, I'm old school. I
yeah,
hate that. I'm so over hearing about mental health. Like,
yeah,
you're in charge of your mental health. I'm just old school. Like, suck it up, buttercup. Let's get through it. But when you think about these life decisions, and I think you hit it on the head. The one thing that I always, because I'm gonna tell you, my daughter went on 4 trips, and every trip she went to, when we were back on Monday, she was like, I want to go to school there. And I was
yeah,
like, good, let's go to next weekend. I want to go to school there. Good, let's go there next weekend. And I'd say, okay, after everyone, I'm like, okay, rank them 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And we would do that. And the thing that I would ask her about Wednesday all the time is like, look, didn't think I asked her. I probably told her.
really.
But I would say, look, yes, this is about softball. Yes, this is about your education. Yes, it's neat, it's exciting. You have options from top 10 programs in the country.
Oh,
But what I want to say to you is remember where you choose, there's a 85 to 90% chance that that's where you're going to live the rest of your life.
oh, yeah,
You know, she always say, "Well, that's not where you did." I'm like, "Yeah, I know. I was stupid. I got into coaching." So you travel, you move. But I said that is. I mean, that's where you're gonna be exposed to, who you're gonna have a partner for life and and it's those kind of things. So it impacts who you really are for the rest of your life, like you
yeah,
said, for the next 40 years.
yeah,
So I think when people think of it as a bigger picture, and look, the bottom line is for 90% of these young women at the end of 4 years, you're hanging up your cleats. Like,
yes,
you've already played more in your career than what you have left.
yep,
And that's what I would say to her is, you already have more time.
yeah,
And I think that's the part that I think is, what I think is important, you know what I mean? So, anyways, with that being said, let's go back into the vault here. I'm looking at here. It says, from region 1, it says, what can parents, coaches do to help young athletes navigate the pressure so they don't feel like they have to commit early? So give me some of your thoughts on that.
it's, you have to prepare them, and I know that that's what they're asking, right? They're asking, how do we get them prepared? You have to have really difficult conversations with them. You have to ask hard questions and you have to make them answer. And I know that sounds crazy. I know sometimes it's difficult to challenge our children, but they are going to be asked difficult questions or put in difficult or uncomfortable positions. by these people in power. And if you're not preparing them for such a conversation and you can't even navigate that within yourselves, they're not going to be prepared for that in a business like setting, right? Obviously,
Right.
we're all teaching kids to be respectful and to be professional and like all of the things, right? But we need to be having within your own family really tough conversations. We need to be comfortable with confrontation. We need to, just like you were talking about when she would come home from a trip and be like, I love this school. I love this school. This is where I'm going. This is where I'm going. You have to sit them down and be like, you have to make a decision here. Like, yes, they're all shiny and gift wrapped and there are bows on top, but which one has the present inside that you want, right? Like, there are ways to go about it, and there are ways to just sit there and prepare them for that kind of stuff. There's no virtual reality bubble you can put them in and be like, high stakes, September 1, it's the day. You have this call, this call, this call. It's not a drill that you can do in lessons, right? But like you can sit there and prepare them through conversation and you can have those conversations. Hey, we've been to this camp. How did you like the campus? How did you like the surrounding areas? Do you like the atmosphere that that school portrays? Do you like this? Do you like that? And start having those conversations rather than getting in the car after a camp and saying, "Did you have fun today?" That's important too. Don't get me
Yeah.
wrong, but those are the those are the kinds of things to get them prepared, right? To really make them think in depth about each decision that they're making or each feeling that they're having, right?
And I think it's cool that you say that because you those kids are starting to go to camps at 8th grade, ninth grade. Like,
So
get a
right.
notebook and write things down that you like, that you didn't like, questions that you
Yeah.
have about it, that you can go back to it, and that, every all of these huge recruiting trips, I kept saying every time we were on it and I'd see all the bells and busters, and they did wonderful jobs, don't get me wrong. I'd say, "This is 20 days of your entire college career because there's 5 home football games every year.
Mhm.
20 days. Don't get caught up in this." It's like I almost wish I wish that I would say you're not going on a football day. You gotta go on a non-football day, something that's not just about all that because the bells and the buzzers, it's easy to make it
Yeah.
look like paradise, but that's 20 days of your career.
That is
That's
really
not the life
yeah.
you're gonna be working, you know what I mean? So, we could really make it pressure filled. Okay, coming from Region 4, and I think this is a good one. How should athletes who don't get early offers respond, and are they at a disadvantage in the new early commitment climate, in your opinion?
I don't think so. As weird as that sounds, so I grew up in the olden days of the early 7th, 8th grade commitments. I did not commit until I was a senior in high school, but 2026s, hear me out, all you uncommitted 2026s. I didn't commit until my high school season in March of my senior year, okay? Imagine the pressure that I felt when there have been kids committed since eighth grade, 7th grade. I 100% felt like I was left in the dust, and my journey was different. I was committed to different schools and coaching changes and whatnot, like Ivy League process. It was a lot. So there was a lot going on, but imagine how that used to make people feel. Now I know it feels really rushed, but it is 1 year, right? Like if you're uncommitted or you're a late bloomer in that sense, you're good. And I know it's hard to have that lens, but like it is 1 year. And these college coaches have a lot to figure out. They have a lot going on. They're navigating NCAA changes, rule changes, roster limit changes where they have
Portal.
to have, yeah, they can't have more than 25 or they have to supply X amount of scholarships or some are like, not all colleges have the 12 scholarships to give, right? Some have
Not
even
even 12, now it's 25.
25. But even then, like people have 4 scholarships to give out, but they
Yeah.
can have 25 spots on their team, right? So the only schools that are giving out that 25 scholarships are super elite schools. The mid majors aren't doing that. So you have to remember too,
You see a lot of Power 4s, just so you know, because 'cause I've talked with a lot of them, they're not fully
not
funded at
doing it.
25. They might be at 20, they might be at
Exactly.
15.
And then you
They might
still have conference champions in the mid majors who have 4 or less.
Yep.
Like, I know it sounds so difficult because there's so much pressure on you in the journey, but just take a breather and take yourself out of it. There is
Yeah.
so much going on that doesn't depend on you, that the right door will open at the right time, and you'll be thankful that you stayed confident throughout the process.
Yeah. And I think this is maybe just me being kind of strange on the other side of it. I almost think that the pressure has now been put more on the upper elite athletes, where before it was on the next level of athletes
Yeah, that's a great
because they
point.
were having to go on their recruiting trips and wait
Yeah,
until those kids made decisions. Now those kids are making decisions and it's like, whew, get the dust to settle. Now it's my time.
yeah.
And I almost think it's had that opposite effect. So maybe it's turnaround fair play. I don't know what it is, but I
Mhm.
don't think it's ever going to be a perfect thing.
No.
What I would love to do, and there's two more questions on here that I think we can address, and then we can kind of wrap it up, is from Region 5. It says, should there be more regulation around how early a verbal commitment can happen in softball, not unlike other sports? And I
Mm.
think you said it beautifully. I'm hoping I can pull it out of your
Yeah.
memory bank because you're younger than me when you talked about what is actually in cahoots with the NFCA and the coaches things, because obviously we talked to all of them. We're never going to reveal who we talked to, but some of the things that they're looking at doing is like, if that September one is the calls and then it's bam, go, 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 what are some of the things that they're talking about that might be coming down the pipeline?
Yeah, there are so many things being talked about and voted on year after year after year, and it's not gonna be a fast fix. So if you're someone in high school right now looking for a solution, it's gonna be the
Good
same
luck.
way it is right now. Good luck, right? Down the pipe, though, we're looking at things that could include, like, a communication period, right? Much earlier. So almost like mirroring where it used to be back in the day where colleges were allowed to talk to July, right? That's when people would start doing the home visits, the XYZ, like, and it was a great grace period.
That was during my recruiting time, and that
Yeah.
you lit July 1st was when you could talk to them, and there'd be a line of 200 standing to talk to one athlete out at
Yep.
Colorado in person.
Yeah.
You only had in-person contacts, and you had to choose wisely,
Right.
you know?
And now even they've made improvements with that too. Like instead of having to wait until the entire tournament ends and then there's that line of coaches trying to talk to one person, you can talk to them at the end of each day of competition, right? So they're trying to think of ways to help better, but they are looking at some things like a communication period around that point. They're looking at maybe like a visitation point before they enter school. And none of this is set in stone. I mean, these are people like
Yeah.
coaches in the business that are giving their opinions, like they're going up and saying, "Hey, why are we going on all these visits as they start the school year? What the heck is that about?" Like they are missing so much school and aren't they student athletes, right? So communication periods are being talked about, visitation periods are being talked about all before that date or even at that date and pushing the commitment date way back. Like there are so many ideas floating around, but it's just trust that there's not a collective group of people that are like, "This is awesome. We're never changing this because this is working perfectly." I think that that feeling of this is too much too fast all at once, it's being felt
Yeah.
at all levels. Even the high level coaches that sorry, we have been given a little bit of hell to today in this podcast.
Yes, absolutely.
They're feeling it too, you guys. Like they're not sleeping at night. They have to stay up all night calling kids at midnight. They don't wanna do that, but they're doing that because their next conference competitor is doing that, and if they don't call the kids, they're gonna be committed by 8 a.m. when they wake up, right? It's just a hamster wheel of pressure. So it's being talked about, guys. I don't know, but a solution
Uh,
will come eventually.
all right, and then this is kind of a question I'm just gonna pull out that I would love to hear your thought process, and then we can kinda wrap it up, but how does the effect how does this affect the message that extra innings softball, us as a staff, send about ranking and development and readiness? I think I've made it more than clear how I feel about rankings and all that kind of stuff because there's no perfect way to do it. No one can afford to have what we would need to have
Yeah,
to do it perfect. But how does that affect our mission? Empower, inspire, and support.
yeah.
How does all of this play into that in your mind?
I think it's so easy to kind of like fall back and be like, oh, well, the rankings are the also high pressure situation because they get a number placed on them. And then that's the feeder system into also this pressure situation of recruiting, where that's not what our message is about, right? Like the whole journey, not just that September 1, the whole journey entails hard work and dedication and sacrifices that these athletes are making and their families are making and their travel ball coaches are making. So with the rankings, we're trying to lift up and celebrate that. Like, you worked your tail off and you're out there performing, and like, this is what you've earned, right? And even those along the way, like, it's funny because we love to celebrate all state honors, right? Or like, we love to celebrate, hey, I got honorable mention all state. How cool is that? But it seems funny because sometimes we get some feedback, like, people are super upset when they're honorable mention all nation, right?
Yeah.
That's a tough one, because if you're putting on that, like, I'm all state honorable mention, it's awesome, I'm incredible, but then we're dogging this honorable mention all and throughout the whole entire nation, that is a beautiful and wonderful honor and a testament to your hard work. And I think it's just, I hope people see it as more of an encouragement of like, I have worked my tail off, right? And now with all these other talented athletes, I'm with them, right? And one day we're all going to go through this process together, whether you're at the top and it gives you that extra motivation to stay there, whether you're towards the bottom and you're not satisfied with that and you get to push harder. It's almost like the question earlier where the parents were asking, how do we prepare them for that? It's a great way to prepare them for that, because it's kind of that difficult conversation where maybe you're not where you want to be. How are we going to get there? And
Right.
resources do we have that we can help you out with? Like, who do we need to talk to? Who do we need to have on a podcast? What drills? Like, what do we need to give you, or how can we help you along that journey? Right? What do you think
Right.
about it?
I like that part of it. I think, and I think the part of it is I keep coming back to the whole reason that I joined extra inning softball was I was totally against rankings. I hated them,
Yeah.
and I still do. But I think the process of what you said, it's more of an honor based thing. It's not
Yeah.
like a who you are or where you're at. It's not a label. It's not an ear tag like a
No,
cow has to find
no.
you. But for me, what I really like about it is I think we're trying, or at least every meeting we ever have that lasts hours, is we're trying to find some meat and potatoes to put on the plate
Yeah.
for athletes and their parents that start as young as 8U. Like, we're starting younger. And like what you said is, if after every camp they start having those conversations, or if they can go here and look at the class or the commit crew of 2026 and hear their journey and
Yeah.
hear their different things, knowledge is power. So I think that's huge. But I think just my final thoughts for the class of 2027 and summing it all up is, I think the recruiting climate is faster, it's more intense, it's going to be earlier with previous classes. Well, I think there are some really clear benefits, like there's certainty and there's development focus if they treat it that way. The risk is pressure, rush decisions, equity. They're real.
Yeah.
And I think the audience, which are the players and the parents and the travel coaches, this means stay informed,
Oh, yeah.
stay true to your fit, and remember, developing is the king of all of it. You know, it's not about getting it done early. There's
Oh, yeah.
something to be said. Getting it done early and rushing through it is not your best work.
Mhm.
Hence, they call things outlines, rough drafts, and final drafts. And I think that would be the biggest thing. I would love to sit there and spout off all the names that had committed early. And I'm going to be honest with you, I printed out the first 50 that committed, and I've got it there, and I'm going to put it in my folder. And this time, well, it won't be this time next year. This time, 2 years from now, I want to go back and see how many of those are still there.
Yeah.
And I to say, because I think only time is gonna tell.
How interesting
So
would
with
that
that
be?
being said, we're celebrating the 26s, we're scratching our heads on the 27s, and time is gonna be there, but congratulations to all the 26s. I can't wait to see
Yeah.
this play out into the 27s. Even if you committed the first day, phenomenal, it's gonna keep going, and the 26s that aren't committed, reach out to us, let us know, we'll do a big spotlight on you, and we can't wait to celebrate you. So thank you for your time this morning, Laina, and we hope we provided some at least thought-provoking questions to you, and look to send in some other questions. Sign up, join, follow us on Spotify and on Apple Play. The more people we get to follow, the more great guests that we can bring on, the more financial support that we'll get, and the bigger things that we can bring to you. So have a blessed day.
Thank you so much for tuning in to this week's episode of Voices from the Field, presented by Extra Inning Softball. Don't forget to follow us on social media, Subscribe to us on Spotify and visit our website at extrainningssoftball.com for more stories, rankings, and updates from around the game. We'll see you guys next week.